The Neil Diamond Musical, A Beautiful Noise, the uplifting true story, featuring all the songs you love from his Grammy Award-winning career. October 21st through 26th at Des Moines Civic Center. On sale at dmpa.org.
Hello and welcome to the Beat Reporters here in the Northwest Bank Studios, presented by Kelderman Manufacturing. Happy crossover season, gentlemen. We are all done covering Men's Basketball Media Day, and it's easy to get caught up in those storylines and forget we got a dang big football game coming up this weekend. How are you guys handling the exhaustion and fun of crossover season?
I'm a vet, so I want Ben to comment first for sure.
I guess I also enjoy the newness of it all in the first crossover season. It was funny last year. It was kind of right when I had got on the scene, and I walked into Men's Basketball Media Day not knowing any faces. Guys, you were looking around like, holy moly. So it was a lot of fun going in there on Wednesday and, seeing some faces I knew and some new faces as well that we'll get into.
Yeah, and I'm a year older and obviously the vastly oldest among us. It does tend to get exhausting, but it's good because you've got a lot of good things to write about, talk about, pod about, create videos about. So exciting times for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. It's my first crossover season on the beat, if you will, and it's probably a step down, honestly, from what I'm used to, because I'm taking the high school sports out of it. I'm taking Drake basketball and Iowa basketball media days out of it. So honestly, it's obviously more Iowa State content, but that's not a bad thing at all. It's like a drug at this point. So we're all kind of addicted to this time of the year, and we're excited to bring you this edition of the Beat Reporters presented by Kelderman Manufacturing. I saw Kelderman on Tuesday night at Chris Williams and TJ Otzelberger's event. Kelderman, it was business casual. I had a nice button-up shirt on. Aiden had a nice quarter zip. Kelderman just shows up. He's got, I think, jeans on. He's got a big cross-chain necklace, and still, Kelderman owned the room. There was TJ Otzelberger in there, who is about as close to a UFC fighter as we'll find. Yeah, Aiden's pulling up the picture right now. Kelderman, can you tell which one he is? He's in the middle, and Kelderman's a boss, and you can just tell that by the way he runs his company. If you have any manufacturing needs, whether it's your truck, your signage for your company, you want to go with the man, and the man himself, Jeff Kelderman, runs Kelderman Manufacturing down in Oskaloosa. It was, all jokes aside, it was fun talking to him last night. I'm sure all the rumors are out that Luke Combs will be coming to Ames this April, and I think he said he knows somebody in his band, and then he said, oh yeah, I've been in that. Pretty much anytime you bring up anyone famous, Kelderman's like, oh yeah, I know him. And Aiden said, who don't you know? So when you do business with Jeff Kelderman, you'll get to meet a pretty dang cool and unique guy. Thanks to him for supporting what we do here at Cyclone Fanatic. We're going to go football and then basketball today. All right, gents. So we should, I think, start with the kicker situation, which has been a topic on this show a few times this year. But this is the first time where it's really been because of a negative. And Iowa State left, you could argue, 12 points on the board last Saturday against Cincinnati. And Taylor Mauser talked a lot on Tuesday about how he approaches the game without Kyle Konrardy. What did you guys think about what he had to say?
Well, I first of all, I always appreciate, is a better word, Taylor Mauser's just bluntness. And of course, he's got a little George Costanza in him. There's always some type of great quote, whether you go back to the old TLC string of comments last season. But it obviously changes things a lot when, Chase Smith drilled his first short kick, obviously in Konrardy's absence, but missed the one at Cincinnati, and you saw 4th and 5, 4th and 6, the Cyclones going for it. I think they were 4 of 7 overall, but a couple of those failures were huge. I mean, when they 3 times inside the 35 for the first time all year, and I don't know why they didn't have a tight end in the mix, but Rocco doesn't make it on a 4th and 1 sneak. Now, that's one where at that point in the game, that's a manageable field goal. But again, Chase had just missed one, and you'd kind of established, hey, we're going for it on fourth down. 9 points to 6 points. 3 points might have ended up being valuable at some point, but clearly it has an impact, and it's going to for a while because Coach Campbell said that the hope is that maybe Konrardy's able to go. He is kicking, he said finally, which is positive, but won't be able to go into game until at least Arizona State can, I believe, out of the bye week.
BYU.
Yep. BYU out of the bye week post Colorado.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that Cyclone fans should know is, hey, it feels like there's some light at the end of the tunnel in this situation. By no means is Matt Campbell or anybody on this coaching staff throwing old Chase Smith under the bus. Like he's giving Iowa State a chance to make some of these extra points. And Matt Campbell said, look, we're so thankful for what he's done in his role as a third string walk-on freshman, who's actually helping out in a lot of ways. The thing I also noticed, fellas, was also in the kickoff game. I think that's also where you really miss the leg of Kyle Konrardy and, Jace Gilbert, even as Iowa State wasn't able to get it as a touchback. And a couple times that burned him, setting Cincinnati up deep. So just a lot of different ways we felt the impact of not having a guy with a 63-yard leg in your back pocket.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I guess my read on Chase Smith is I've heard a lot of people say, well, if you're a college kicker, how can you not trust him to kick from 40 or 45 or whatever the number is? I guess that without having any intel from the staff or the recruiting staff, I know he was a quarterback in high school, and he was a good one. I know that's from Ben's publications, neck of the woods. And North Scott was pretty good last year, and they didn't need to kick a lot. If I had to guess, there's someone on Iowa State's recruiting staff that saw something in Chase Smith that said, hey, down the road, he could definitely be a kicker at Iowa State. And when you recruit a walk-on kicker as your third string, you probably don't expect to use him his freshman year. Yep. So the fact that, not that they don't trust him at all, they're still letting him kick extra points, but it is clear that they don't trust him anywhere near the level that they trust Kyle Konrardy. And that's probably normal. I don't think that this guy is the absolute best, or absolute worst they could do in the kicking game. But again, it's still not the same as what you had before when you were in field goal range at the 40.
I did try and pay pretty close attention to Smith's warm-up when we were down on the field at Cincinnati last week, and I didn't see him venturing much farther, beyond a 40-yard field goal in warm-ups. So I think there's maybe a clear range that he's been given, and that's just a guess as to, hey, Chase, this is when we're going to use you. And as the Cyclones found out, they're going to be going for some of those 4th and mediums. And Matt Campbell told us after the game that they knew that was going to be the game plan. He viewed it as an execution issue, not a preparation issue. The Cyclones knew that they were going to be in those situations, and they practiced for it, just couldn't get it done, as Rob mentioned, in some of those early scenarios.
Yeah, and one of the problems is what happens on first down. There was a lot of second and longs, and then since they're just implementing this, the increased amount of 4th and mediums has been said. You're going to be tweaking and figuring out what plays work best on third down. And I'm sure Mauser would tell you maybe he wished he'd tried a couple of different plays, because some of those times it went from 3rd and 5 or 6 to 4th and 5 or 6. Whereas, what if we make it 4th and 2? Again, the one time Rocco fails and a sneak on 4th and 1. But that notwithstanding, I think we'll see this evolve. And again, hopefully Konrardy's back. And to your point, Jake, I'm sure that's exactly what it was. I mean, it's a quote-unquote developmental program. And if you're going to bring in a walk-on to be a third-string kicker, you're probably thinking, hey, this guy's got potential. He's not there yet. He hasn't done a whole lot of it. But we think we can work on him physically. He's got the mindset for it, et cetera. And he could be a guy that we could rely on for long kicks down in the future. He's just not there now. So I fully concur that would seem to be the logical reason as to why why you go and recruit a third string walk-on kicker.
Well, there's no doubt that Kyle Konrardy is very, very important, as that has been showed time and time again over the last couple weeks. He's probably not as important as Rocco Becht. Rocco is the most important man in this program, and we've seen 2 straight games now where he left to go into the evaluation tent for a concussion, and he was able to return in both of those games. And while Campbell left no indication as to why he wouldn't play Saturday, I do think this has to be a concern going forward when number 3, your best player, has gone in the tent a couple straight weeks. Does this change anything for Iowa State? Do they have to approach anything different to keep Rocco on the field? Because that is the most important thing above all else.
Oof! Look at that! Look at that picture that Aiden pulled up, man. Just reliving that hit.
I had a few Cincinnati fans comment and say that wasn't targeting, that wasn't a dirty hit.
Because that's after the crown collects. I mean, you see it kind of under the face mask there, right? He just kind of scrapes across down there.
Yeah,
I mean, Rocco.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I somewhat naively, but you ask these things, right? Ask Rocco just how did he feel in the moment after that, and he just, I felt like expletive, right, and just kind of laughed a little bit. But I mean, clearly very much hurting and clearly a concern. But at the same time, as Mauser said, as Campbell said, I mean, this is the guy that wins you football games. 7 fourth quarter comeback wins. Looked like maybe there was a chance it was going to be an 8th, but again, the execution wasn't there to get more points on the board in the second half after falling into that big hole, 31-7 at one point. So I don't know how much you can change. I don't know, because he's so important to the run game as well. I think they just have to be, I guess, I don't know. I'll open up to you guys, but I don't think they can willingly take him off the field at any point, and that's the only thing that would protect him from being put in these situations.
Yeah, Rob. I asked Taylor Mauser this week. I asked him, are there situations when you scratch off plays? You scratch off design quarterback runs because of all the hits that Rocco's taken, knowing the importance of what Rocco is to this team. And Mauser says yes, he is scratching off certain plays at certain times. And I guess that offers some level of protection. But as you said, the run Rocco made right after coming out of that tent was not designed. That was just Rocco getting his bell rung, coming back, and crash down at the goal line again. So that stuff is not designed, and I don't think Iowa State can separate the warrior from Rocco Becht. I think you have to know that dude's just going to take off in certain situations, and it is such a conundrum because if Rocco Becht, were to miss some time, that would be something that Iowa State hasn't had to deal with. He's been an Ironman, and I think it would really make things difficult on him. Such a tough deal of how do you protect Rocco Becht from himself, almost. Yeah,
when you look at the rest of the schedule, I don't know if there's going to be a situation similar to the fourth quarter against Arizona. It's certainly a possibility. It's football. But I think what has to change, if you've got a 20-point lead, if you've got a 30-point lead in the second half of a game, you don't need to be doing designed quarterback runs for Rocco. And that goes without saying. Yeah, exactly, yeah. You don't need to do that. You should still play the game like normal, and that's football. And that, I think that's kind of been the message from the staff the last few weeks. It's like, yeah, injuries happen. That's football. And like Rob said, the only way to prevent an injury from Rocco is have him sit out, and nobody in their right mind is even considering that as a possibility. So it should be business as usual unless you find yourself in those scenarios, or even if it's, not that this has happened really, but if it's 3rd and 16, you're probably not calling a design quarterback run. Stuff like that where the odds are against anything positive coming from the play anyways, so you might as well protect your guy in that scenario.
No doubt.
I'd be really interested to look back at the stats. This might take some research as to see what percentage of Rocco's runs are designed. Mauser told me, this week, he's not really calling a lot of designed runs. I would venture to say most of those designed ones are in the 4th and 1 scenarios.
I found that interesting. So he didn't necessarily say that they weren't designed runs, but they weren't designed run only. So a lot of RPOs, which the way that I took that is pretty much anytime Rocco scores on those 7 to 12 yard runs, the way Mauser made it sound is those are pretty much all RPOs. The one, what game was that? The one where they cleared out all 5 wide, and then Rocco, I think that might have been Arizona. I'm guessing that was probably an RPO where they cleared all the 5 receivers out, and then he saw, I've got an opportunity, and goes. So that's when Iowa State's offense is at its best, is when Rocco has the decision to, hey, if it's there, I'm going to throw a jump ball to Bramer or whatever. But if it's there for me to run, I'm going to make a linebacker miss and put my team in the end zone.
And maybe that's the best way to find this balance. Sorry to cut you off, Rob. But maybe that's the best way to find this balance of protecting Rocco and not eliminating what makes him special, is to just give him the decision of allowing him to know his own body, to let him make the decision of when he wants to take off and go dive for a pylon.
To an extent.
It's a tough thing since it's crossover season. When Ben was talking, set some wheels in motion in my mind. Not only does he wear the same number, but Rocco Becht is Taman Lipsey. Even though Taman Lipsey grew up in Ames, loved Iowa State his whole life, and Rocco Becht couldn't have told you where it was before what it was before he came. But he's very much in the same vein, how much he cares about this program, how much he cares about this team, and how much he cares about, as Campbell has stressed, winning. And I think that guy would do anything. And as we're seeing with, obviously, Taman going through, the injury, that he's got at least a couple weeks more recovery before he eases back into things. Rocco is in a lot of ways like Taman, and Jake, you did the fun piece about them having that class together and all that. And it's just like you can't take it out of Taman. How many times this goes, TJ said that, we don't want Taman to play differently, but he's always going to get hurt in some way because of how much he cares, right? And throws his body into it. I think it's very much the same thing with Rocco, and you just knock on wood that he's that type of competitor that if he can go and you give it and you make it his decision, he will go.
And I guess that's where the parallel is so interesting, because there's a balance. If we're talking men's basketball, because we're going to see this in a few weeks, you want Taman to be Taman 100% of the time. You don't need Taman to be Taman against Grambling State, but the way that TJ Otzelberger has built his program is you do the same thing at the same time against anyone at any hour of the day. So that's where I see both sides, because part of me as a Cyclone fan, as someone who covers the team, when they're just beating the crap out of Alabama, A&M, or whatever, I'm like, why is Taman in the game? They're up 35. But then I also see the other side of, this is just how they roll, man. It doesn't matter the score, it doesn't matter the opponent, it doesn't matter where they're playing. They play the same, and Rocco's the same way. He's gonna be the same quarterback when they're playing at TCU in a few weeks as they were when they were up 35-7 on South Dakota in the beginning of September, I guess end of August in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a tough conundrum. We talk about safety, and Taman and Rocco are not very safe players. They both are safe when it comes to protecting the ball, which is important. They're not necessarily the safest about protecting their bodies, and that's what makes them fan favorites. But I can tell you that Farm Story Meats is about as safe as it gets when it comes to purchasing meats right here in Iowa from local farmers. We appreciate Farm Story's support here at Cyclone Fanatic. They were started by Ray and Jess Schmidt almost 50 years ago is when they started raising animals the right way on their respective family farms. It can be certified Chester white pork. They've got Angus beef, pasture-raised poultry, even bison, and there's no antibiotics, no added hormones, just clean, high-quality meat that's raised by real Iowa families. And that's what we are here at Cyclone Fanatic. We're all real local journalists that are just trying to cover the local team to the local fans. So what you should do in support of Cyclone Fanatic and what we do here is go support Farm Story Meats. You can go to farmstorymeats.com and check out their meat shop to buy some of the best meat in the state of Iowa and certainly the safest. Thank you to Farm Story Meats for presenting the beat reporters here on a Thursday. So Chase Sowell has a bit of an interesting game on Saturday. He not only is a former Colorado Buffalo, which players playing their old team happens all the time. Players playing a team that kicked him off the team or told him to get out when the coach got there on his first day on the job, that doesn't happen every day. Rob, I know you've got a great feature story out on CycloneFanatic.com and over at the Cedar Rapids Gazette. What's your read on Sowell's mindset heading into Boulder?
Well, I asked him after the Cincinnati game what it's going to be like for him, and he just said, the first thing he said was, hey, there are a lot of really good people still at Colorado, and I appreciate them, and I appreciate the fans. And he said, no hard feelings. Dakota, I have no hard feelings. I was young. I was banged up a little bit. And he, as in Deion Sanders, and I think Deion was tasked with basically shaking it up and reshaping the whole roster, most of the roster anyway. Because Jordan Tyson ends up, as we talked about before, one of Sowell's buddies apparently, going to Arizona State, and he's a star there. But yeah, no hard feelings. He just had to live with it, and he said it made him the man he is today. So I think I'm sure the competitor in him wants to go there and beat his former team. But I believe him when he says there's no ill will. And I had a fairly lengthy conversation with his dad, Ronnie. He played baseball at Florida. His mom was a 3-time All-American soccer player at Florida, so he's got the pedigree for sure. But he was talking about it the same way, and they kind of understand there are business decisions made in this sport, and the business decision, interestingly enough, and it's in the feature, the business decision that Chase Sowell made when he had visits scheduled for places like ding, 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 Florida, was to call up his parents before that visit and say, I'm going to Iowa State. And his dad told me, what was the quote? He couldn't believe it. We thought it was a slam dunk. He has people texting and calling him. He said it was their dream, right? Hey, Chase ends up at Florida after all of this, and then he gets that call, and I think he said something like, it was not a fun night for me, but I came to understand that he was right. And you can't, to paraphrase, he said, you can't make decisions based on what other people want. You've got to make decisions based on what feels right to you. And he said that's obviously worked out great. He called it a blessing to be there. And how wild is that, though, that it felt like the stars were aligning for them as a family. And Chase Sowell stepped out and said, yeah, but I've come to Iowa State here. I've met Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. He was at the bowl game against Miami with those guys. I like it here. Sorry, Mom and Dad. That's your dream. And as I said to his dad, so he chose his own destiny, and clearly he did. And over the last couple of weeks, we've seen him emerge as a budding star at receiver for the Cyclones, for sure.
That's what I would add, Rob, is for Chase, I feel like his homecoming at Colorado couldn't be at a better time for him, as we've really seen him take a step up in these last couple games. And, we saw him leave the game early, and Rob's feature story goes up in flames. Yep.
I held it. Yeah.
Only for Sowell to return to the game eventually after, I believe, being looked at for a shoulder injury and coming back. So when we asked Matt Campbell about the mindset required to kind of ignore some of the distractions, but also lean into it and use it as a little bit of motivation, Campbell pointed to the recent example of Rocco Becht going back to West Virginia last season when his dad got inducted into the Ring of Honor. Just an absurd set of circumstances. And Rocco turned in arguably his best game as a Cyclone, all things considered. So certainly people on this team have gone back and had successful homecomings before. And I think we all expect with Chase Sowell, him to have a level of maturity about this. And, maybe if things continue, for it to be kind of the Chase Sowell game.
Yeah, there's also an element of how hyped up are you going to be? How extra motivated are you going to be? And in football, that's something that I think, depending on the position, can go a whole lot of different ways. Like a quarterback, if a quarterback is super desperate to go prove something and I'm going to stick it to them for letting me go, there's always going to be a chance where you're forcing it. You're being too aggressive. When it comes to a wide receiver, I think that's about as good a position as you can get because it's you versus me. It's Sowell versus the DB. Like, you're probably running a little harder. You're probably jumping an inch higher. You're being a little more explosive, a little more intentional. So I think that helps in this case. Would I want it out of a safety? Maybe not, because you might be over pursuing and I'm going to hit somebody and you get beat over the top. But when it's in the case of Sowell, I think on Saturday it could play into his favor that he's going to have a little more chip on his shoulder than he normally does.
Yeah, one of the other things, it actually didn't make it into my piece because there's space limits, all kinds of things. Can't ever fit everything in. His dad said he was very much a late bloomer. I think I touched on this last week. 5'6", 120, going into ninth grade, was going to quit, focus on baseball. But he said he must have coached him in like middle school track. And he would not put Chase on the teams to go and compete. And he said it was really hard. And he was mad at me, but he just wasn't good. He wasn't fast. And it's your job to coach the team. And Chase, I think, has been told or been in the situation. I mean, the late blooming, was it a blessing in disguise? Who knows? I mean, the idea that you had to go through that and to think you're not even going to play football because you're so small, you're not fast, even though you've got this family history. I believe his uncle on his mom's side, also not in the story, was former Chiefs running back Derek Blaylock. So you got all this stuff and you're not getting it. And that's another quote he had, just like, after all the things that I've gone through, it's just really nice to finally get some results. Like in the last 2 weeks, the career high yardage game against Arizona, the really good touchdown against Cincinnati, and going in and out. I think cramping was one thing he said was an issue in that game for him as well. So, and I'll just close with this. David Boston, the former Ohio State standout and NFL player, all-pro, said it's been all about work for him. And he called him the consummate professional. You know, he loads up sleds. He has them do Olympic lifts. He doesn't like the Olympic lifts. He understands it, and that's where kind of his speed has come from. In addition to when he did bloom, that speed started to come, right? But it's all been about the work for him, and it feels like it continues to be. And when that's the case with a really good athlete, that usually leads to just building and building and building week to week.
No, that's awesome stuff, Rob. You should go check out that story, CycloneFanatic.com. Just another vintage Rob Gray feature story. So, fun football talk.
Dude.
Usually we'd be done by now. A few football topics, but nope, it is basketball season, and Iowa State held their media day on Wednesday. The three of us were all there, doing a little bit different things each. I had a blast. If you want to go to CycloneFanatic.com or head to our YouTube channel, I did a one-on-one with 9 different players. I caught pretty much every player but Plata, Mulder, Mitchell, and Anthony Rice. So, unfortunately, we didn't, well, good and bad. A few of my interviews went longer than I expected, so we ran out of time. So go and check out all of those. We've got a few different basketball topics that we want to hit on. Should we just start with one fun, interesting thing that we all heard? Just go around the room. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Take it away.
Yeah. Blake Buchanan's favorite player ever. Guess who it is?
Oh, man.
Well, I know this. Because I was listening.
Sean Kemp?
Not a bad guess.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Really?
You know? Yeah. I was surprised to hear somebody of Blake Buchanan's generation drop Hakeem the Dream as his favorite player.
We were talking before my interview. I know he's a Mariners fan, so we were talking about he's pretty much all Seattle sports for the most part, but for some reason he's a Broncos fan. But he said if the Supersonics ever came back to Seattle, he'd be a fan. So that was where my Kemp guess came from.
So a really good guess. all things considered.
And that's a good player to base your game off of, Hakeem the Dream. There's not many centers better in the history of the world than that man right there.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that and then give you mine. I did ask him, since I heard Ben ask that question, what it was about him, and Ben might have as well. And he was doing a piece, I think, or videos, things on asking guys interesting questions. But he said it was like one of the guys he worked with that wanted to show him all these videos to just give him an idea of the footwork, not even the high flying. The Dream could do about anything in the interior, but it was a footwork focus for him. But then the one I got, I wrote about Milan Momcilovic and TJ Otzelberger's almost 700 word. I don't want to call it a screed, but a plea encapsulating the word, just hunt your shot. And Milan told me that TJ told him he was most proud of him last season in the Houston game. When he started 0 of 8, he's 0 of 8 at halftime. He ends up leading the team with 16 points. They're in it until the end. I think Houston had some free throws. It ended up being a 9-point win for the Cougars. I think the Cyclones were down Jones, I want to say that game. It maybe Keyshawn.
Jones and Gilbert. It was the time they both missed a game.
Yep.
And it was kind of both not expected the day before.
Yeah, and yet they hung in all day with the national runners-up, the NCAA tournament runners-up, because in large part, not just him, but he came back and ended up 4 for 14, again, led the team with 16 points. And he said he's not natural. He's not a natural hunter. He said in the past he'd go, oh, man, if I go into 6, he just goes, oh, well, dang. It's not going in. And now he's got to adopt the mindset, okay, if I go 0 of 6, I'm going to take 6 more. And, oh, what if I hit all 6? Then I'm 6. Then, bang, I'm 6 of 12. I mean, I don't usually think that shooters are reluctant to shoot and the scorers, but I get that idea that, man, I don't like him. I don't know if you want the word embarrassing myself because I can't make a shot. Well, but the shooter's mentality and the hunter's mentality is, well, the next ones are going in, and it sounds like that's really hitting for Milan. So that was just an interesting tidbit for me. That was one of the moments where TJ was most proud of him that game.
I also talked to Milan about the types of shots that he's practicing. And he said that he's practicing the tough shots more this summer, whether it's catching it and shooting while running full speed, not as many just wide open catch and shoot threes, because he's not going to get many of those. He might get 1 or 2 of those a game if he's lucky. So he is going to have a lot of he's running off balance, chucks up a 3. He's said he's been practicing from the logo. So I think that's really encouraging that there's a lot of people in this world that can be really great spot-up shooters. There's not a lot of people in this world that have the talent, that have the focus to be able to shoot with 2 hands in your face, to shoot if you're going from 100 to 0 in a millisecond, stop on a dime and shoot. So I think that's also really encouraging for Milan.
It was funny, Jake, hearing TJ at the start of the season giving out the scouting report. The secret's out, guys. Opponents this season,
oh, yeah.
if you want to beat Iowa State, don't let Taven Lipsey, do anything with the ball. Keep Joshua Jefferson out of the paint. And do not, for any reason, give Milan Momcilovic an open 3. Secret's out, guys. That's how you beat him.
I thought that was really funny, too, as well, Ben. My interesting nugget from the day is, I guess this wasn't said outright by TJ Otzelberger at the press conference, but got it kind of confirmed by some players that TJ started the year with a team meeting and wrote everybody's salary on the whiteboard and said, if anybody's got a problem with it right now, speak up. Otherwise, we're moving on. Salary means nothing. Salary doesn't equate playing time. Playing time is determined by what have you done, what have you proven to me, and how tough are you? How many times are you missing practice because you have a sore throat, because you have a light ankle sprain? I thought that was fascinating. And I asked 2 prominent guys who are making a lot of money in NIL, Joshua Jefferson and Milan, what that means to them. And they said everything. This is a basketball program. This is this is nothing else. And when everybody can be on the same page, I mean, these guys are talking anyways. It's better to have it outright. This is what player A, this is what player B, player C is making. It takes out all of the extracurriculars on, oh, you're in practice. I can't believe this guy. I heard this guy's making twice as much as me, and I've hit 3 more shots than him today. It takes out all that nonsense, and I can't imagine there's another coach or another program in the country that's doing that, and I respect it like no other. It's a risky move by TJ, but I think this group of guys has responded to it well. You can tell.
Totally agree. Yeah, it fits TJ though, doesn't it? I mean, he's had him doing these MMA fights. I mean, he brings his passions in and shares it with them. And I think there is really, the Hawks not having the phones out when they have team meals together.
Yep.
It's a real, I guess, throw in the fighting aspect. It's a true quote unquote family kind of deal they're trying to create. And obviously it's led to NCAA tournament bursts in each of the seasons. We know how far that team could have gone last season without the injuries derailing them in the second round of the tournament. So it is surprising, but it is also keeping in line with the no-nonsense approach TJ takes to everything.
Yeah, it's the fighting thing is just a whole nother realm where that's one of TJ's biggest personality traits. It's one of his biggest hobbies, and you'll see in Chris Williams' incredible book, go and pre-order it now. You'll see in the chapter, I won't give it all away so you buy the book, but this program is pretty much formed around UFC and TJ's love for the sport of mixed martial arts. And now they're actually going and training. And I'm blanking on who told me this. It was either Heisey or Bateman. Both of those guys are pretty big UFC fans. And one of them told me, I should know who it was off the top of my head, but it's a lot harder than it looks. And when you're in that training, and it's obviously probably a very beginner training compared to what Khabib is doing and what all the top names are doing, but you realize how much conditioning, how much focus, how much toughness it takes to hit combos, to do it time and time and time again. And in a weird way, it's almost a perfect metaphor into TJ Otzelberger's program. And it's a fascinating wrinkle that has developed even more into this year.
And since the width with Chris in that book, and honored to be so, I can say he not only focuses on UFC, but fighters from a specific region and what they're all about, is something that he really admires. So, I mean, it's a deep dive and a really fun read. So I second the plugging of Chris's book, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that people don't know, and they're going to enjoy reading about it. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, no doubt.
Staying on the UFC topic a little bit, I think Cyclone fans will be pleased to hear, talking to Jamarian Bateman and Killian Torre, they have been enjoying not only fighting with each other, fighting in quotes, but also fighting with Taman Lipsey. Now that Taman's out, they are having the opportunity, along with Dominic Nelson and Cade Kelderman, to get extra reps that they probably wouldn't be. And I just got the sense from Bateman and Torre specifically, these are guys that fit into what Kyle Green want to do.
Sure, and this is probably the overriding question of Iowa State's 2025-2026 basketball season is, how do you replace the two leading scorers of the team in the backcourt? And I'm really curious about this specific battle. TJ talked about that competitive atmosphere, Jake, that you mentioned as, being a good thing. That's what both of those guys are about. They bring a little bit of a different offensive flavor. Bateman being more of the shooter and Torre being a little bit more of the off-ball cutter, get in the lane combo guard. So it feels like they could be complementary right now. And then when Taman Lipsey returns, you kind of add that all in. That's going to be, I think, the main question we ask. And, that might determine the ceiling of this Iowa State basketball team.
No question. They're both very, the freshmen are Bateman and Torrey, very mature guys. I mean, Bateman just sat there and talked, asked him about what it meant to him to be his high school class valedictorian. He said it's one of the most important accomplishments. It's indicative of how he goes about everything. And even threw in offhandedly when he was talking about what he wants to improve on, which he was frank about. He said, and of course I'm a good shooter, or really I'm a great shooter. That kid's confidence is through the roof, and you like to hear that. And then Torrey, very much the same way. I asked him a little bit about his hometown, what it was like. He said he played with a bunch of guys in Lyon. There, I think he said it was maybe France's third largest city. And, reminisce a little bit about that, but how it built him working with guys that you think of the European game, their offense first, their finesse first. I know that's changed a bit over time, but for him, the only way he was going to play with older guys is he had to show he could defend. And that's one element he put on display immediately before Iowa State, but particularly impressed TJ since he got here. And as Ben said, his ability to cut, attack, those are two hungry young men. And I think they were going to play anyway, particularly Bateman, but sounds like they're going to obviously need to play as Taman works his way back in, but I think they both carved out roles for themselves this season unless something changes.
I can share a funny story about Torrey. I was talking to him after my interview, so this wasn't recorded, but we were just talking about different French basketball players, and he was telling me some of the guys he's looked up to, some of his favorite players that are in the league now. And I think we were talking about comparisons of him to the players. And I said, any Tony Parker? And he said, in his French accent, no, I play defense. So nice. I came away today just really, I really liked Torrey's personality. He was a great interview, and it's crazy to see the highlights where he's a pit bull on the court, and you can tell that Taman Lipsey does not like going against him. You can tell nobody likes going against him. And then today during the interview, he's about as fun as it gets. So I think Iowa State's got two really unique guards in that freshman spot that could play a pivotal role in this season.
Absolutely.
I had a fun conversation about overseas basketball with Dom Plata, of course, the German, freshman on Iowa State. And we talked about the culture, the differences between American basketball and EuroLeague basketball, and how the defense and the physicality is, so important now, just as it was back then when Plata was playing against a 40-year-old. Guys, he was telling me about his teammate, this German, EuroLeague basketball legend who was 40 years old and played the best defense that Dom had ever seen, got right up in the chest. And I thought that was so funny. This teammate, just such a difference. I mean, we think college basketball 6 years are old. I mean, those guys are young compared to who played it was used to going up against.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
This team has such a mix.
Yeah.
You've got mix of age. You've got mix of country, upbringing. You go Germany, France, Idaho, Miami, that's where Dominic Nelson's from. Ames, Iowa, Waukee. I know that is typically how basketball teams are made up, but I think this year is maybe even that to an extreme. And I think that was really fun for me from a media perspective. I think the fan base will have a lot of fun getting to know these guys over the year. I mean, you've got a guy who's top in his class in a massive high school, and he also happens to be a top 40 recruit. There's just a lot of really cool stories on this team, and I can't wait to get fully into it because this is just the start.
Yep, and exhibition in Creighton, a week from Friday. So
man,
we'll be rolling.
We'll all be there. Yeah,
No
I'm excited for that. Just you can see all the practice clips you want, but a practice clip can be cut up. It's 10 seconds from a 2-hour practice, of which you have 5 a week, of which you have how many weeks in a fall season, and then the summer. I'm really excited to see what Torrey and Bateman specifically look like against high-level competition on the other side, because we haven't seen it yet, and that's what it is being a freshman, and that's what makes this year so unique. We're not going to have to wait until a Thanksgiving tournament to see Iowa State's young guys, the transfers, play against other Power 5 teams.
Yeah, Otzelberger mentioned, these used to be the secret scrimmages, and he's, I think, at a point where he's realized, hey, when we play these meaningful games, they're going to be in big crowds with people cheering them on. Let's throw these guys in the fire early, see how they react in that atmosphere.
And it's also a good way to make a few extra bucks too for these for these athletic departments. But
You're exactly
concessions, baby. Sell some concessions.
Yeah, there's two different avenues to it. My stepbrother Gabe, he's going to the game, and he asked me where to buy tickets, and I found the link, and the cheapest one I saw I think was $32. So it's not like you're paying for a Wednesday night G League basketball game. It's $30 is no slight for an arena as big as the CHI Health Center. I don't imagine it's going to be sold out or anything, but I bet we see a pretty good crowd next week in Omaha.
They love their hoops there for sure.
And no disrespect to the FDU Knights, I think they are, but we're going to learn a lot more about Iowa State, in Omaha against Creighton in an exhibition than I think we will even in a real game against FDU on November 3rd.
And then we'll learn even more against Creighton in the real game in Vegas in a little over a month.
And Northwestern in the exhibition as well, Big Ten. So both exhibitions arguably we'll learn a lot about this team from.
Well, guys, I think this is a pretty successful show. You have any other basketball notes you want to hit on before we wrap this thing up?
Yes.
Okay.
People showing up with Dom had a black eye. Nate had a Band-Aid over his eye. Guys, the UFC is no joke, man. They're getting after it. Elbows flying everywhere. Make no mistake. It's physical and it's showing up.
I asked Heisey how he got his. Was it during some MMA stuff? And he said no. It was Dom Plata who had the black eye. You said get clipped him in practice. So. They're definitely getting after it, though, like you said, Ben, and it's carrying over into everything. And, again, Fiji is known for these physical practices. You add a layer of physicality on top of that, and these guys will certainly be chomping at the bit to go in that first exhibition in Omaha for sure.
Yeah, that was my next thought is I bet these guys are so ready to beat up somebody else because it's got to be a different experience when you are eating with these guys every day. No phones allowed. No phones allowed at the breakfast, lunch, or dinner table. I mean, these are your best friends. These are who you're spending time with, and you're throwing elbows. You're like brothers pretty much, and now you get to go out in a couple weeks or in a week, and you get to punch somebody else. You get to throw a couple elbows at somebody else. So I'm sure they're just chomping at the bit for that.
For sure.
Awesome, guys. Well, this has been a fun crossover episode of the Beat Reporters here in the Northwest Bank Studios. Thanks to Kelderman Manufacturing for presenting. We will be back next week amidst a bye week, so we might get into even more basketball next week. We'll be right back here in the Northwest Bank Studios. Thanks for joining us.